Okay.
All right, I'd like to first introduce a new member to the board, and they're online with us.
He's not on yet.
Okay,
He said he would be running about 10, 15
Oh,
minutes
okay.
late this morning.
well, just FYI, we have Patrick Gannon, from Mexico Economic Development Department. He's a new rep on the board. He is the JTIP, program manager, so, when he shows up, we'll make sure to point him out, and embarrass him a little bit, let him introduce himself. All right, well, I hope everybody had a nice holiday. I'm still getting over, all the travel and everything, and totally not prepared for the next holiday. But I hope everybody had a nice and safe holiday. Thank you all for coming and joining us down here in the southern part of the state. I was hoping it would be a little bit warmer for you all. Unfortunately, it's a little bit chilly. At least for me, it's chilly. I don't know. Maybe this is pretty nice. But thank you all for joining us, and thank you to Joniana Community College for hosting us today. They have a wonderful facility. All right, well, let's go ahead and start off with the approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes from staff?
Yeah.
All right, and I'm not seeing any changes from the board. So since there are no changes, we don't need to approve the agenda. It's already the agenda. All right, moving on to the approval of the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review those? And are there any changes?
I have one change, and it's just a typo of my name on page 3 under action item to be ratified meeting minutes from April 3rd. If you could just remove the second E from my name, please.
Let's make sure we get Kelly's name corrected. Any other changes?
That was it.
All right, thank you. Well then, is there a motion to approve the minutes with the change to Kelly's name?
I'll make it.
Thank you. Thank you, Bryn. Rebecca with the second. Okay, for all of us in the room, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And then online, if we can do a roll call, please.
Mathis Sinnet? We couldn't hear you, Mathis.
Yes.
Thank you. Kelly Ropke Orth,
Aye.
Carlos Romero,
Yes.
Paul Espinosa,
Yes.
Judith Cooper,
Yes.
Ashley Long,
Yes.
Colby Wilson,
Yes.
Sabrina Ezell,
Yes.
Amber Gallup,
Yes.
and Patrick Bishop.
That's it, and Patrick is starting.
Okay. All right, so the minute, the minutes are approved. And Patrick, welcome. Hello, Patrick. Welcome to the board. You may be setting up. Sorry to point you out, but I just wanted to give you an opportunity to say hi and introduce yourself.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Are you referencing me, Patrick Gannon?
Yes, Patrick Gannon.
Oh,
Hi.
great. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. The State Workforce Board. My name is Patrick Gannon. I'm with the New Mexico Economic Development Department. I'm the state director for the state's Job Training Incentive Program, otherwise known as JTIP. For those that don't know what JTIP is, it's essentially the program that's been in state statute since 1972 that receives legislative appropriations annually to work with industries primarily in manufacturing that are expanding operations. It's one of New Mexico's premier tools used to attract new industry to our state, but it's also there to work with companies that are already established here in New Mexico who are expanding, growing their companies and creating new jobs for New Mexico residents. We work with early stage startup companies all the way up to very mature companies. Every year we wind up funding about 80 to 100 companies statewide. Last year we awarded about $28.5 million through this program and assisted companies with the creation of over 2,000 jobs. So it's a great program. I'm very happy to be representing it. And again, I'm very happy to be appointed to this board through the governor's office as of earlier this week. So thank you very much. I look forward to getting to know everybody in future meetings. So thank you very much.
Likewise, then, and thank you for joining us, Patrick.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the next item, approval of the policy. We've got a youth program eligibility policy 24-002. And is that going to be part of the covering up for us?
So, I talked to Veronica, I think we all know with volunteer leadership, it's really the staff that does a lot of the work. So, so she's got the majority of the changes that we'll report out on. And then I'll do the actual policy committee report later on in the agenda. Okay, thank you. So we are requesting for policy issuance 24-002. This is the second new policy of this program year. We are rescinding the previous policy, which is the Workforce Guidance Letter DWS 18-004. That policy was created in 12/21/2018, so it has been a while since this policy was updated. And because it's been quite a while, there were a lot of changes made to the policy. So we added, I'll start with the references. We added several more references, specifically a table where we pulled a lot of the information that we didn't have in the previous policy. And that table is 21-16 is what we added to the references. There were several more of the act references that we added to the table, to the policy. I'm sorry, the correct table is 0-22. It's the WIOA Title I Youth Formula Program Guidance Tool. We added some requirements to discuss funding and requirement priorities. That was one section that was not previously in the policy. That was a huge section added. We also added a section regarding braiding funding leveraging, which talks a little bit about how Title I Youth Program and WIOA Title II Adult Education can provide complementary services to youth. We also added some more better clarification of what is a participant. So that was added. You'll see in that section that basic eligibility for youth is age, selective service, and eligibility to work in the United States. We had a reference of the 14 program elements, but we did not list the actual 14 elements. So in this policy, you will see all 14 elements listed and the definition of those elements. We also added some better clarification under low income eligibility exceptions. Primarily, we were seeing in our monitoring with each of the local boards, there was some, we needed to help clarify the high poverty areas and define what is a high poverty area. So we made sure that we included that language in this section of, and what we use to determine if the area is a high poverty area. We, under the in-school section, we just, reorganized some of just the formatting and the layout of those sections. Moving on to same thing with the out of school section. It was more of just, cleaning up the language, making it just a little clearer in the formatting. Same with the OSO exception section. In the objective assessment and the program design, we added language in regards to the assessment. So if a local region is wanting to utilize an external partner's assessment or IEP, we just wanted to make sure that that was very clear in the section that could be utilized. Under eligibility documentation requirements, we just, it was more of a formatting, not so much that we added anything. We did highlight that we currently have an electronic file guidance letter. It is a carryover policy, which is a state technical assistance guidance. That is probably the next policy we need to update because that one is definitely outdated. But we needed to make sure that it was very clear in this policy that policy guidance letter is still active. In the next section of supportive services, this was definitely from this table that we referenced, which is table 0922. We added some language about food. That was something that we typically don't talk about as a supportive service for somebody, and so it is an allowable supportive service. So we wanted to make sure that that was included in this policy. Incentives. So most of our, I believe all 4 of our local workforce boards have an incentive policy already. They've always had their incentive policy. We just did not have that language in our policy. So we've added that to ours. There's also some language added in here about mental health assessments and referrals that are allowable to be supported with Title I funds. We all know that during COVID, we all had to pivot and do a lot of things virtually, and our boards did a really good job of doing that when we needed to. So we just wanted to continue to have language in here that says that virtual work experiences are still allowable. It wasn't just a COVID allowable activity, but you can continue to do virtual work experiences. And then we added some language about digital literacy and access. There's also some added language in here about reporting and expenditures for pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship. We have seen and are doing a lot of work with pre-apprenticeships, and so we wanted to make sure that that language was in here. And there's always a huge push and conversation about apprenticeships and pre-apprenticeships in the work that we do. So this was not in the previous policy, so we felt that was important to have that in there. And the last thing that we did was just strengthen the language about standing leave committees. All of our 4 workforce boards have standing leave committees. What we're really trying to a goal with this policy is to have you sit on the standing youth committees. That's really what we're striving for. They have their committees, but we'd like to see that they start to include the youth to have that voice on that committee. And all of our future policies and the past ones that we've had, we've never had the non-discrimination language in there, so we're ensuring that moving forward, all policies will have that in there. Are there any questions on those pieces? The last thing that we added that we did not have before was, well, we had a glossary, but we went in and added several more definitions to the glossary. And what we didn't have at all before, which is another attachment to the policy, is the allowable documentation requirement. So that is a table that outlines the eligibility document that we need and what different types of documentation we could use for that specific eligibility criteria. And that's everything that we did for this policy. Any questions from the board?
Any questions or comments? Not seeing any in the room or online. Then is there a motion?
There's one from, I have one question.
Thank you, Amber. Yes.
So Veronica, thanks for that. And I just wanted to ask a couple of things. So Veronica, you remember that a couple of years ago, you and I had numerous conversations with Michelle Ribeiro at the time in my office about the basic skills deficient designation. And we talked also about the possibility of having guidance from the DWS, that, to all 4 of the regions. And it sounds like this is similar, at least in the youth program, to what we were discussing. Does that sound right to you?
It does. At first, I thought you were going to mention co-enrollment, but now I do recall, yes, those conversations, and we can definitely resume those conversations again. We know that these policies are living documents, and anytime we need to make a change to them, we need to do that. So thank you for bringing it up again, because I did not remember those conversations from a while back.
Yeah. And thanks. And I know that this is just policy, for the youth program, and it might be not exactly what we're talking about, because you and I had discussed more of like a guidance document. But I think it's relevant here just to discuss briefly, since Title II is mentioned a couple of times. The basic skills deficient definition that we're using in the state, I know it comes from WIOA. I know that we can build on it if we need to. And I'm wondering if, and it could be that this is the wrong place to address this. And if so, just let me know. But I think that one of the concerns that Title II had about that definition was that, saying that there's an 8th grade cutoff as to whether they are designated basic skills deficient is potentially can cause a problem when it comes to then referrals to Title II. Like we're trying to, between our 2 systems, we're trying to bolster that system. A lot of the times people who go to the work, to the one-stops and actually are basic skills deficient are not being identified as such, and as such are not being referred to Title II programs. And we want to improve that, just like we're trying to improve referrals from AE programs to the one-stops. So having that 8th grade cutoff, I had some concerns about it, because if they're not taking a test, a full test in the one-stop when they get there, there's not a way for the person who's working with them to really know if they're basic skills deficient or not, to really truly be able to identify them and then do the referral. And I think that more needs to happen. There has to be more of a process in place, I think, that's more nuanced, and some training so that people who are not going through a full test like that would still be able to, the person working at the one-stop would be able to say, you know what, this person probably does have a need for Title II services. We're at least going to refer them over there and help them understand what's available to them for free, in their community. And I think that the reason I'm bringing this up now is because I think the basic skills deficient definition impacts that. And I just wondered what the possibilities are maybe for broadening that. I know in Wisconsin, for example, they don't have a definition like that. What they do instead is they've got a process and the one stop where they, are able to sort of evaluate the student talking or the potential student, talking to them, figuring out what's going on, learning about their previous work, education, and then making a determination from there whether or not they refer. It seems like it's a more dynamic process. So just wondering about anyone's thoughts on that.
Amber, what state was that you referenced with the broader definition?
Wisconsin is what I heard. Yeah.
Thank you.
I can look into that more, but that's what I learned.
So Amber, what we can do is we can schedule a meeting to meet with you and our 4 local workforce, administrative admin directors, and we can definitely start to discuss this. It does mention here, because you did, and I may have not heard you correctly, but you did mention that if they're not tested at the workforce office, so our 4 workforce boards are testing them with a standardized test. So they're not determining that without an assessment.
Okay, so this may be just part of it then. So they're using like work keys, I'm assuming?
They're using the tape. Most of them use the tape.
Oh, they're using the tape. Okay. All right. And they're saying if it's not below 8th grade. So yeah, I think that it's 8th grade or below.
Right.
Would be the issue. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, that's good to know. I think that, each one is being tested, going through the full tape?
Yes, for youth, yes.
For youth, yes. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, then that sounds better, but I agree that I think that it would be great to have a conversation about the referral processes generally, because even sometimes a test score, there's some nuance there about, who is appropriate to put over or not. And also folks who have, English language proficiency, challenges or whatever, that's going to be something to address as well. So just let's talk about that further. But as far as this policy goes, I don't have any further concerns, just that I don't want it to be a barrier to referrals. And that was my general concern.
Okay, thank you, Harper.
So I have just a question in this, and that is when we did this, the objective assessment part, does that mean you're thinking about adding a little more to that basic skills assessment to look at a referral in the future? I'll take revision of this document. Is that where we're trying to, I'll say, alter?
Yeah, so we have a section about the objective assessment, which is different from the actual assessment that they give for basic skills deficiency. So, if we need to, alter anything, it would be the basic skills deficiency definition.
Okay.
Can I add one more thing?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, just about the tape. When they're being taped, which test is it?
So someone from any of the boards on, Glory
Art is on.
is your Chrissy or Jamie?
Yeah. I don't recall what test it is.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
sorry, know that off the top of my head.
Okay, just worth note. Okay, just
We can get you the information specifically for what each region is using.
yeah, because again, a basic skills deficient, they could be tested in, one like language arts, for example, and come up okay, but in math, they would have been below an 8th grade level. So that's something just to consider as well when we talk about this.
Right, that says 9 and 10. The 9 and 10 test.
The 9 and 10 test.
Okay, that's great. There's a new test out now that's going to be going away in the 13 and 14 now is what people are being using in the future, but that's good to know.
So I just want to point out that from the policy perspective, there's that or clause and then a much squishier second bullet point about unable to read, write, speak English at a level necessary to function on the job. So I think that I think having a process is great, but I think the policy as you all have formulated it does already create enough space to institute a policy. I mean, a process.
All right, so any other comments or questions then?
I just
Yes,
wanted to comment really quickly because I did on the policy committee with, and Rosina and Veronica did an enormous amount of work, and I'm just gonna point at the eligibility documentation requirements, sorry. That I know they started from scratch basically and created, and I think it's gonna be a tool that's gonna make it really easy, or hopefully significantly easier to be able to identify the appropriate documentation. So I just wanted to say out loud, I know this was a heavy lift, particularly this, but it's gonna be a really useful tool, and so just thank you guys for it.
Any other comments or questions? All right, seeing none and seeing none online, is there a motion to approve the youth program eligibility policy 24-002?
I move.
Thank you, Rebecca. And Bryn with the second. All right, for those of us in the room, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and going online, we'll do a roll call.
Ashley Long,
Yes.
Amber Gallup,
Yes.
Patrick Gannon,
Yes.
Sabrina Izell,
Yes.
Kelly Ropke Orth,
Yes.
Mathis Shinnick,
Yes.
Judith Cooper,
Yes.
Colby Wilson,
Yes.
Carlos Romero,
Yes.
Paul Espinosa,
Yes.
Sorry, we just don't want to mess up the name. Johannes Chimyu.
Here.
Thank you, sorry,
You're welcome.
that's all.
Is that a yes?
Is that a yes, Johannes? Johannes, is your vote a yes or a no?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so the youth program eligibility policy 24-002 is approved, and I'll just echo Rebecca's comments. I know this is a lot of work for the committee and for staff. And I also appreciate your comments, Amber. I think it's important to note that our policies are living documents, so if we adjust them as we go forward, nothing is set in stone, so we may see this again, and that's okay. All right, so we are concluded with our action items, our decision items for today. Let's move on to presentations. The first one we have is by Jessica Lynn Robles of the Mesilla Valley Economic Development Alliance. I thought it would be useful for us, since we have our meetings in different areas of the state, to learn more about those regions. And I feel that workforce development is economic development. They're so closely tied together. So I think it would be good for us to hear, what's going on, what's the economic development situation here in this region. So that's why I asked Jessica Lynn to present to us. Thank you for joining us, Jessica.
Thank you. Am I heard from here, or I know that it's live, what's the best format or expectation for delivery?
You want to stand up? I don't know if that's
We'll
Okay.
find the word.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all very much for allowing me to be here. I am Jessica Lynn Robles. I'm the Director of Business Development for Mavita, and we represent New Mexico Border Flags. There we go. So Mavita, Mesilla Valley Economic Development Alliance, we are the local EDO here for Doñana County. We're a full service 501c3 EDO, and essentially we are considered full service because your standard EDO does do the marketing and attraction for a region, we actually offer 4 subset of services, marketing and attraction. So we're the ones that respond to companies' inquiries when selecting regions for them to potentially move to and select as their new home. We do the marketing for our regions. So as our region is pushed out into your, sites like your magazines, or we're the ones with boots on the ground attending the trade shows, looking for the companies that may be wanting to expand or relocate or establish an actual facility. We're the ones that do the marketing there for Doñana County. Retention and expansion, that's my baby. That's my heart song. So we work with already existing businesses in the region. Any new job growth or job development in any area, 80% of that actually comes from already existing businesses. So it's really important that we have a program that focuses on providing them the support and resources to do that, because a lot of times it can be your small mom and pop shop that's able to grow into something big. And being a small mom and pop owner, you don't necessarily have the time to look for those resources. And so we provide an in-person constant outreach to the existing companies, and then also provide them with the resources to either retain or expand. Economic development advisory. So with the economic development advisory, a lot of that is the feedback from our marketing and attraction. There's so much information in lost opportunity reports, why companies didn't select our region, but also what companies did like about it. In the advisory, it puts our entire staff on boards. We sit on boards similar to this, and we provide information that comes from both an existing business viewpoint, but also potential business viewpoint. And then capacity building. We take that information and we want to grow to make our area more attractive, to hopefully win more projects and create more jobs within our region. So that's why Mavita is full service for the New Mexico Borderplex. Now, I suspect some of you have never heard the term New Mexico Borderplex before. Those that are already in EDO or are familiar with our organization, you have. But our New Mexico Borderplex is essentially New Mexico, Texas, and Chihuahua, making us tri-state, binational region with one singular solution. As a MSA, we're actually, as a combined statistical area, we're actually in the top 25 MSA in the nation, giving us a 2.7 million population with 7 regional universities and a post-secondary student output of 150,000. So we're ranked in the top because we're strongest as a region. What makes us strong as a region is clearly the location that we have here. Not binational, 3 states, but it provides us a good reach outside of being equidistant outside of Long Beach, Houston. Ports, thank you. To the ports here, equidistant to that, we reach a 200 million population and almost a 4.5 US business population within our region. As we are marketing and trying to bring businesses to our region, it's important that we know our strengths. And our strengths are actually in already existing strengths that we have here within 7 main industries. Manufacturing being the first. A lot of people don't realize that we're actually the 5th largest manufacturing region in North America. Being a binational location, of course, does help with that. We spoke to being equidistant, and then as we talk about the next industry, you'll see why. But as manufacturing, it's also a labor workforce. We have almost a 570,000 industrial workforce with a manufacturing labor force of almost 300,000. What's really neat is as Mavita, the full service EDO in the region, we actually commissioned a study over a year and a half ago to evaluate our region's readiness and preparedness for the developments and advancements in manufacturing, technology, and processes. Looking to properly evaluate and quantify our existing workforce here in the area. We were able to identify like skills and roles that are transferable to the advancement, and we identified through the study, they were able to identify 25,000 already existing advanced manufacturing workforce. The study also spurred a workforce program that we have, which is again, something that's really important to me, our Automate Up program. And that came from a recommendation from the study to better prepare our region for the advancements to create more certifications. So last year was our pilot program for the Automate Up program, and we actually were able to provide over 150 certificates to individuals within our region. This year, we have 3 times the amount of funding, and we're slated to do about 400 certificates this year. So it's an exciting program. Thank you. Logistics, warehousing, and distribution. I kind of touched on this, but this is probably, I would say, the most subtle industry nobody really even realizes. You may see the MBT truck on the road, or when you're traveling, you're excited because you see an MBT truck in Oregon. And that's because they're actually one of the largest trucking in the nation, but that's because of who we are logistically. We have both large railroads, UP and BNSF. We're equidistant again to the ports that I had mentioned before that I couldn't remember before. The Port of Long Beach in LA, Port of Houston, equidistant, 12-hour drive. And we have our 2 largest interstates, the I-10 and the I-25 intersect right here in Las Cruces, New Mexico. And of course, that port of entry, people know about Portales port of entry, but a lot of them have probably never crossed the Santa Teresa port of entry. It's actually a huge commercial port of entry that we have here in Doñana County. And then within our region, there's 4 commercial and cargo services lines. You know, we have the Las Cruces, the Doñana County Jet Port. If you've never been in Santa Teresa, you probably don't realize that that's there either. And then of course, the El Paso International, and then the Juarez Airport. This is the most in your face, I would hope, agriculture, right? Doñana County is actually the top producer in the nation for, who wants to guess? There's 2 products. Pecans and green chili, right? Obviously. But we're actually the most diverse county in the nation also, with over 700,000 acres of farmland within our county. That's a lot. Aerospace. Hopefully another one that I think that most people can identify aerospace as one of ours. In the state, you know, we have in the state level, we have the 3 Air Force bases, 4 actual aerospace test facilities. And just locally here, of course, NASA, hopefully you know about PSL, White Sands, Spaceport America, and we have the largest AUS designated flight center, which is where most of your testing, drone testing, some really amazing stuff is done out there in the aerospace arena. And then high tech and digital media. This is where your film falls. So that one should hopefully be a little bit more obvious for a lot of you too. Your film is going to fall under this industry here. We have a lot of the support, especially from NMSU and DACC. We now have the new Creative Media Institute out there, if you guys don't see it driving off of the highway out there, but also really attractive to some of the incentives that we offer within that industry alone. Almost a 30% cost savings off of any of the development that goes into that. What's really neat is that isn't just for film. It helps with gaming. It helps with production of filming. And so that's really what makes our state and our region ideal in this industry. And then back office and technical support. So these are going to be your call centers or your financial centers. A lot of them may not necessarily be the call centers, but they are doing that work and that response out here. And that's because of our workforce. It's actually what makes us ideal for this. And then the saturation that we have at our level 2. It isn't really highly saturated, but again, our workforce. What do you think makes us most unique in our workforce for a call center attention?
Bilingual.
Exactly. More than 65% of our population is bilingual. So we're really, really ideal. Thank you. And of course, renewable energy. 340 days of annual sunshine, that's a lot. Especially if you've lived pretty much anywhere, well, okay, let's not talk about Phoenix, but if you pretty much live like anywhere else, you know that it's the perfect amount, in my opinion, of sunshine. With a lot of the infrastructure that we have to support our solar growth, but even on the state level, we're talking wind, hydrogen, and we're not just talking about the existing land and clearly the sunshine, but we have a lot of support services that go into it with some of the incentives that we have here. And then also, I mean, a lot of people don't realize it, but wind turbine tech, we actually have the school, one of the best schools in the world, not just in the nation, here in Doñana County. And then, of course, we consider this an industry because this is our heart, the sabor. This is our culture of life, and it falls within our industries because this is really a key part that attracts people. Everybody's, love to go because of what existing infrastructure and support you have within the system. But this is what seals the deal, is our flavor of Doña County. So what do we sell? Like, where are these businesses gonna go? Who's been in Santa Teresa? Okay, so yes, not even half of the room has been in Santa Teresa. Who's been at West Mesa, our Los Cruces Industrial and Innovation Park? Okay, that's right next door to the fairgrounds, guys. You're breaking my heart here. But, okay, exactly. So available sites, where do these businesses go? Let's take a look. Okay, within our county, we actually have 6 industrial sites. Our whole county is an FTZ 197. And last year alone, we had over 1 million square feet in spec development in our county. Does anybody know how big that is? Okay, it's huge. It is, and it's big. That's one of our biggest years. And all this spec development actually went in already industrial parks. And let me tell you, that's great because we're able to bring new businesses who want to come out and build here, or we're building facilities to come in. But majority of businesses that are coming in are taking up already existing space within our region, which is also phenomenal. But we're going to focus on the new space that we have for them. So our industrial parks. So if you can kind of see on the map here, we have 4 industrial parks in that southern part of Santa Teresa, which hopefully you guys will all make an effort to go into in 2025. We have the War Eagles Museum out there. That port of entry, there's not a peak house on the other side of our port of entry, so you don't necessarily have to cross there. But let me tell you about the jobs out there. Like, we're all workforce development. You should know where a majority of those jobs are. And a lot of them are coming out of there. If we're lucky, the companies there are able to provide jobs for at least 30 to 50% of their staff, which is over 100, are New Mexico residents. And that's really big. Because there are people coming from Las Cruces. There are a lot of people working there in your Champanino, Anthony, and Valdo areas. And these are your rural jobs. And you want to see where they're going. So I definitely suggest a drive-through. It's not a quick drive-through because it's pretty spaced out. So give it an hour. But we have our industrial parks out there, 4 out there. Las Cruces Innovation Park, or some of you may know it as West Mesa. If you guys are ever driving up the 10, you see the huge AKS? No? Well, some of you really don't even know. Okay, so that is the Las Cruces Industrial Park, right next door to our fairgrounds. We have some huge companies out there. Here's Saputo cheese. Do you want to know where a majority of the nation's string cheese is made? Las Cruces Industrial Park. And we have over 300 of our residents working there. So. Some of these Santa Teresa industrial parks, we have the 4 industrial parks there. Why are they all the way out there? Of course, the port of entry. We have some really neat things out there. So there's over 18,000 acres of already master plan industrial area. And what that means is a lot of the infrastructure is already ready for them, but a majority of it is going to be your road infrastructure, which is really what that attraction is, especially because Santa Teresa has a 12-mile overweight zone. Okay, if you guys don't know what that is, that's huge in logistics. It means their trucks can carry more. It means trucks can carry more across the border. And that's why it's also huge for warehousing and distribution, because they can unload there and then send out. And then again, that workforce is key, because now you're tapping really, really strongly into that binational and bi-state workforce. And so a lot of your workforce is going to be bilingual there also. Okay, these are some of the new, I've mentioned over 1 million in development. So this is the new development that we had going on out there. Over 350,000 square feet in just this new development out there. A lot of them start to build without any commitments, and before they're done, before they're even done building, they're already built. So that is the demand that we have in Santa Teresa especially. And I actually think all of these are filled. All of them are filled, huh? Yeah.
Well, except the top one, but yeah.
One of them is though. No? Oh, yes, yeah, no. Okay. Thank you. And then Las Cruces Industrial Park, it's really a huge industrial park with over 18,000 total acres of land and almost 500 of it is certified, meaning it's certified land, people can come in and they can develop and they don't have to worry about some of the environmental research or the historical research being done on there. It's already been site certified with most infrastructure ready to the property lines. And I hope now you are all at least able to speak to why businesses want to come here, and hopefully you know who to send them to. And so thank you very much for allowing me to be. This is a really amazing meeting to be a part of, to see what goes on behind the scenes. And thank you for being involved in the people that we try and find jobs for. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Jessica Lynn. I don't know if there are any questions for Jessica for the group. All right, well, thank you very much. I love whenever we get a chance to promote our region, so thank you for that.
I'll throw a rocket Santa Teresa. We always had a lot of fruits that's industrial park where you want to be trapped. They have chili, beer, chili. That's the place.
Yeah,
to be.
yeah. Yeah, it's a lot better than plastic injection opening.
You can't eat that stuff.
Well, they kill the cow crossing and the onion crossing, and we'll onion cross there too. I could live on eating onions.
All right, well, thank you again. Okay, let's move on to our next presentation. We have some partner updates. This month, we've got Title IV, New Mexico Commission for the Blind and the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. Greg, you brought a group for us today.
I did, Mr. Chair, thank you very much. I will introduce our co-presenters here in a second. I want to first compliment Secretary Nair for the presentation that you did at the Disability Employment Awareness Month on October 17. That was very, very well received. October 17 is traditionally Disability Employment Awareness Month, so we had a really great event here. So Title IV, Vocational Rehabilitation, what is that? So the Vocational Rehabilitation Program is one of the oldest state-federal partnerships in our nation. It began in 1918 in the wake of World War I with this year's Veterans Vocational Rehabilitation Act. And the success of that law led just a couple years later to the passage of the Civilians Vocational Rehabilitation Act. So our program is all about getting people with disabilities employment. There are in this nation a total of 78 vocational rehabilitation agencies. There are 3 different kinds. There are 34 territories and states that have what we call combined agencies. And there are 22 states that have both a general and a combined agency. And New Mexico is one of those, blind and a general agency. New Mexico is one of those states with the blind and a general agency. So with me here today, we have 2 individuals. Jim Solis is the Deputy Director with the New Mexico Commission for the Blind. He'll be presenting on our statewide performance measures. And Eric Padilla is a Program Manager with the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, our state's general agency. So Eric?
Thank you, Greg. So again, my name is Eric Padilla. I'm the Program Manager for Southwest New Mexico. I cover, well, let's see, Alamogordo, Las Cruces, Silver City. So all the way from TRC and then down and then in that part of the state. So this is real general information about vocational rehabilitation. DVR stands for the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. We assist individuals with disabilities in reaching a career goal. That could be obtaining, regaining, maintaining, or advancing in employment. We're focused on competitive integrated employment. And what that means is a job just like anybody else, right? So there's been some changes in the past in regards to federal law, in regards to what employment looks like for people with disabilities, and sheltered workshops is something that's not allowable anymore. Neither is sub-minimum wage. So our focus is a job with benefits just like any other person would be able to do. Next slide, please. These are some of the more common services that we offer our participants. 60% of our funds are spent on training. So that could include supports with secondary education and post-secondary, all the way up to a doctorate degree. We do have multiple participants here locally that are pursuing their doctorate degrees. but it also includes trades too. So anywhere from CDL, electricians, plumbers, you name it. If it's something that somebody needs in order to reach their employment goal, we can support it. Next slide. So the first line on this slide, I want you to just kind of take that out of your mind. So the eligibility requirements for people for our program, for DVR's program, is 14 or older. So anyone 14 or older, they do not have to be a U.S. citizen. As long as they have a work authorization, then they're eligible for DVR services. A person with a disability that wants to. This is a general overview of the process. It starts with a referral, which we do an online referral on our website. Next step is the initial intake. And then from there, we're collecting medical records to determine eligibility. After that is the comprehensive assessment, which is kind of a fancy term for career assessments and determining an appropriate employment goal for that individual based on their specific needs. And then after that, we develop what's called an individualized plan for employment to determine what services that individual is going to need to reach their goal. So yeah, there's some additional services. When I present on this information, I usually say it's easier to talk about what we can't do than what we can do. And so what we can do is very limited in terms of services. We can't purchase real estate. We're not going to be the first provider in terms of medical insurance. We can't purchase vehicles. Those are some of the things that we can't do, but pretty much anything you can think of in terms of helping someone reach their employment goal, as long as it's required, we have the freedom to do so. And then this is a major focus of the services that we provide. And this is per WIOA, 15% of our funds have to be spent on what's called pre-ET services, which stands for pre-employment transition services. And so we are in all the high schools across the state, but we have staff that directly work with those school counselors and with the students with disabilities within those schools. There's also some other sites and connections across the state that we work with in terms of Project Search. I'm not sure if anybody's heard that. In this region alone, we have 3 Project Search sites. One with Holloman, one in the Hive, actually New Mexico Children First, and then in the future will be Deming. This is a big deal for us. And then these are the, what they call them, the 5 pre-ETs is what they call it. And so job exploration, that's career assessments, job shadowing, work-based learning experiences is just another term for on-the-job trainings. And then assisting with financial aid, assisting with what the next steps are for post-secondary education. Self-advocacy is teaching an individual about their disabilities, how to advocate for themselves, what's the appropriate processes in terms of employment and just life in general. And then work readiness training, that's another way to say that is soft skills training. And so besides the services we provide to our individuals, we also serve our employers as well. We do have a businesses services team now within the state, and we coordinate with Workforce's employer services team for those services to make sure we're not hitting up the same employers multiple times. So that's a key part, phase of what we do there. And so some of the services we provide to employers is guidance on accommodations. We talk about the WOTC, the Workforce Opportunity and Tax Credit, how that could benefit them. Overall, just spreading awareness and education on working with people with disabilities in general, and how they can be more inclusive in their business practices and their hiring practices. And then this is just some general information and resources available on DVR. For anybody that you know of that's a person with a disability, 14 or older, that wants to work, best place for them to go is on our website and submit an online referral. We can assist them over the phone too. If they need that support, or if they come in the office, we can also assist them one-on-one or in person, or even go to an employer as well. However we can accommodate, we're definitely happy to do so. And next is Greg.
All right. Thank you very much, Eric. So the Commission for the Blind basically does everything that Eric just described. So why a separate agency for the blind? Well, one reason is that the law requires it. So the Federal Rehabilitation Act requires either that a combined agency have a separate bureau of services for the blind, or a separate commission for the blind, which is what we have here in New Mexico. Again, there are 22 states that have separate commissions for the blind. So what is it about blindness? Well, I always like to give the example of what happens if you woke up in the morning and you were deaf. Well, you might not even immediately notice it. You'll get up, you will go, you'll shower, you will get dressed, you'll cook your breakfast, you can go outside, get the newspaper, go to your car, drive to work, park your car, walk the block or so it might take you to get to your office if you're parking where you've got to park a little bit away. Go up to your office, turn on your computer, read your computer, and start working. Now, if you're an individual who goes to bed and wakes up and instead of being deaf in the morning, you were blind in the morning. Well, the first thing that would probably happen is you would be seized with an immediate sense of panic. So that would be the immediate reaction. You wouldn't be able to go about any of the things that I just listed, even getting dressed, even shaving, cooking, going outside, finding a newspaper, wouldn't be able to get to your car, you wouldn't be able to drive, you wouldn't be able to walk from where your car was to your office, getting to your office, turning on your computer, reading your computer, all of those things you would not be able to do. So blindness itself is different in all of those ways. Now, we at the Commission for the Blind have individuals with all sorts of disabilities in addition to blindness. So we're kind of, you will think of us as a specialist. We specialize in disability with an emphasis on blindness and low vision. To qualify for our services, you basically have to have a visual impairment that impairs you from being able to drive. And here in New Mexico, driving needs vision of worse than 20/80. If you can't see better than 20/80, then you're not allowed to legally drive here. So the Commission for the Blind has a number of different programs. We, of course, have our basic vocational rehabilitation program. Matt described what all that entails, but we also have some unusual programs here. One of those is our Technology for Children program. Kelly Burma coordinates that. She'll be providing technology here to the blind child. So we provide assistive technology with a partnership with the Department of Health to children as early as age 8. And we provide technology that they need for use in the home that will complement what's taking place in the school. During the pandemic, that was a really important activity because we helped enable those children to engage in remote studies. We also have our Newsline for the Blind program, which is a newspaper reading service. We provide over 500 different newspapers that people can access using their smartphone or just even a regular desk phone. We have our Randolph Shepherd Act program, which is our federal vending program through which we provide food services. One of the things that people don't generally know is that the Commission for the Blind provides all of the cafeteria services at Kirtland Air Force Base. We also provide the food services at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Artesia, as well as a number of other entities, Los Alamos National Labs and Dia National Labs elsewhere in the state and federal property. In addition to that, we have our independent living program. which is funded through the federal Older Individuals Who Are Blind grant, in which we provide services to people who don't have an employment goal for 55 and older. There's a huge rate of growth of people with visual impairment due to age-related macular degeneration. We also provide independent living services to people who are younger than 55 using what are called Part B funds. And that often becomes a conduit for our vocational rehabilitation program. Sometimes, as will our older blind grant as well. So next slide. So we run our orientation center in Alamogordo. That is a residential training facility where by individuals, most of whom are newly blinded, but we do have individuals who go there as well who've had visual impairment. Perhaps their vision got worse, perhaps they did not get the services they needed in order to function as they should. So over a typically 6 to 9 month period, we'll provide training in Braille, orientation mobility, which is using a long white cane, assistive technology, personal management, cooking. We have a full shop class there, a bandsaw, table saw, really a great facility there in Alamogordo. And we also run through that program our Students in Transition to Employment program, which is part of the pre-employment transition services program that Eric mentioned. We have a statewide program in Albuquerque. We run it through our skills center, and we provide last summer employment opportunities for 41 blind and visually impaired kids. If you're an individual who is blind or has low vision, you don't have the opportunity to work that your peers do. So we'll provide paid employment for those students and training as well. So next slide. So this is our set of office locations. We have offices in Farmington, Albuquerque, Santa Fe, Roswell, Las Cruces, of course, Alamogordo, our training center as well. And we'll go to our next slide here. And this is my favorite slide. This is the Stevens Amendment. So one of the things that does set vocational rehabilitation apart is the strictness of our federal oversight agency, which is the U.S. Department of Education, specifically the Rehabilitation Services Administration. So we have a very, very complex set of federal program and fiscal rules, and they're very, very strict in that. So this sets forth our funding, and whenever we do this kind of presentation, we have to include this information. You also should have our annual report and our agency brochures. And with that, I will turn it over now to Jim Salas, who will give you a report on the statewide performance measures for the vocational rehabilitation program. So Jim.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
So we're going to start off with slide 14 for me, please, which is the New Mexico Title IV performance results for program year 2023, again, which would be from July of 2023 through June of 2024. Again, Commission for the Blind and VR. Slide 15, please. So these are the performance measures that I'm going to be discussing. Employment during the second quarter after exit, employment during the fourth quarter after exit, median earnings during the second quarter after exit, credential attainment rate, measurable skill gains, and effectiveness of serving employers. And so I'll give you, for each one of these a definition, and then we'll give you the results on a separate slide. So slide 16, please. So employment during second quarter after exit, there's the definition: percentage of program participants who are in unsubsidized employment during the second quarter after exit. So basically 6 months after they exit our program. And so, and this is basically everybody that exits. So not just the folks that exit in employment, with a, what we call a rehab closure, but folks that exit what we call other, so not employed, they exited for some other reason, health issues, financial issues, they lost interest. They maybe are, got on social security benefits and now they are less incentivized to go back to work because they're satisfied with the social security benefits that they're receiving. So a lot of different reasons why people leave the program. Usually we have in the neighborhood of 50 to 60% closed rehab, and again, the others are closed other. Slide 17, please. So employment during the second quarter after exit, again for Title IV programs in New Mexico. Negotiated level, so we'll define these terms as we go through them here on this first slide. Negotiated level 42.0%. So in the spring of 2022, like April or so, the Commission and DVR met with RSA, representatives from RSA, to negotiate our performance levels for program years 22 and 23. And of course, we usually provide an expected level. RSA counters with, a number based on, some other statistical information that they have. And we come to an agreement as far as a negotiated level that we're going to pursue. Next is the adjustment factor. Again, in this case, for this measure, 6.98%. So this number is based on what's called a statistical adjustment model that the feds utilize to kind of project performance and derive adjustment factor based on economic conditions and participant characteristics in each state. So this adjustment is specific to each state. So we add that adjustment factor to the negotiated level to get the adjusted level, in our case, 48.98%. The actual then for New Mexico was 47.5%. So just a tick below the target. For the Commission, 46.8%, again, a little below the target. 47.5% for DVR. Again, right on the level for New Mexico as a whole, but again, just a little below the target. Performance assessment is the key number here. This is the number that the federal government is particularly interested in. And in our case, it's 97.0%. That is a fantastic number. The feds are, again, and this is the actual number divided by the adjusted number, 47.5 divided by 48.98. And the feds are looking for really performance above 50%. So if we're below 50%, then we would be receiving technical assistance. If we were below 50% for 2 consecutive years, we would be subject to sanctions. Not going to happen. Slide 18, please. Employment during fourth quarter after exit. Again, pretty similar this to the previous one. Percentage of program participants who are in unsubsidized employment during the fourth quarter after exit. So basically a year after they exit our program. Slide 19, please. Here are the numbers. Negotiated level for New Mexico, 38%. Adjustment factor, 4.5%. Adjusted level, 42.5%. Actual level, 43.3%, above the mark. Level for Commission for the Blind, 33.3%. For DVR, 43.5%. So the question here for us is usually how are we going to know, right? How are we going to get information on whether somebody who exited our program a year ago is still employed? Well, for DVR, for my buddy Eric and his friends at DVR, they use what's called Swiss data, is one of the tools they use. And no, we're not talking about Zurich or Geneva or Bern. Okay, we're talking about the state wage interchange system. So if we're looking for a more descriptive title to a program, this is going to be a nominee, right? Swiss state wage interchange system, because that's exactly what it is. It's an agreement between states to make available the information that we're talking about, basically unemployment insurance, employment and wage data, so that we can determine whether one of our our consumers, one of our participants is employed in another state, or with a federal agency that reports their data. And so we at the commission, we are not on the Swiss bus right now. We've been trying to get on the bus and just had a hard time getting that final meeting together with the Swiss team. We're trying to work out actually dates for next week, as a matter of fact, so hoping that that comes together so we can kind of finalize that agreement and ourselves have access to that information. But meanwhile, we survey our participants with not monthly, but quarterly contact. So either phone calls, emails, text messages to determine if they're still employed. If they are not still employed, if they are employed, sometimes it's still employed. But if they are employed, and if they are, what's their hourly rate? How many hours of work a week are they working? Are they in any kind of training program? And so that's the kind of information that we're trying to get. Performance assessment for New Mexico on this measure, 101.86. So fantastic number here. We're all generally happy, but like I said, with the commission, we know we can have a little better number on that. Slide 20, please. Median earnings during the second quarter after exit. Here's the definition. Median earnings of program participants during the second quarter after exit. Slide 21, please. Here are the numbers. Negotiated level for New Mexico is $4,600. The adjustment factor, you see here, this is a negative number now. The previous two, they were positive numbers. They boosted up the adjusted level. This one is a negative number that reduces the adjusted level by $260.87. Adjusted level for New Mexico, 4,339.13. Actual level, 5,417.98. Again, way above the mark. For the Commission for the Blind, 11,276. Whoa, that is fantastic. And so if we flesh that out to an hourly wage based on full-time employment, that'd be $21.68 an hour. And so when I was putting this together, I went back and looked at the program year 22 rehab closures for our agency. And because those folks are going to be the ones that then have their 6 months end in 2023, right? So captured for this particular measure. And so what we had was average wage of our rehab closures was $22.90 an hour. Fantastic. And the median was $21 an hour, right on the mark. And so actually, so then I looked at 2023, just to look, just for fun. And our average wage is $25.83 per hour, and the median was $18 an hour. So I think in program year 2024, we're gonna have some good numbers here. DVR, their number here was $5,321 an hour. Again, way above the mark. If we fleshed out theirs to an average wage, $10.13 if we were talking about full-time employment, and you're saying, well, hey, Jim, that's not even minimum wage. What are you talking about here, buddy? Well, Eric, do some of your consumers request part-time employment versus full-time employment?
Yes, sir.
There you go. And that's very common for us as well. We have some of our participants, they don't want to work full-time. Maybe they're a little older, they just don't want to work full-time. Maybe they're on Social Security benefits and they don't want to jeopardize, right, their Social Security disability insurance or even supplemental security income, which is really not a lot of money. But somehow folks sometimes make it work, right, Eric?
Yes, sir.
They just make it work for themselves.
Yeah, those on Social Security tend to rely on Medicaid, so
right.
They're afraid to lose their medical insurance.
Yeah, they're really interested in the medical insurance. It's almost more important than the cash benefit many times.
So,
yeah. So the performance assessment number here, again, which is what the feds are looking for, 124.86%. Fantastic number there. Slide 22, please. Credential attainment rate. So this is participants, the percentage of participants who attain a recognized post-secondary credential or secondary school diploma, or its recognized equivalent during participation in or within 1 year after exit from the program. Again, so we're usually talking about an industry recognized certificate or certification, a certificate of completion of an apprenticeship program, a license recognized by the state of New Mexico or the federal government, an associate's or bachelor's degree, and that would be for all the titles. But for the VR program, Title IV, we also get to recognize graduate level degrees. And Eric talked about, graduate education, graduate degrees for some of their consumers. Same for our participants, because our programs support careers that require graduate education. So we get to count graduate degrees also in our credential attainment rate. All right, slide 23, please. Here are the numbers. Negotiated level 28%, adjustment factor is 12.79. So we really bumped up based on economic conditions and participant characteristics. Adjusted level 40.79%, actual level 40.0%, 40% even just a tick below the target. Commission for the blind 52.6%, way above the target. In our case, again, we do get credit for the high school graduates. That is a credential, but only if within a year after they graduated from high school, we'll say they are either employed or in a post-secondary education program. So that represents a number of our credential attainment marks, as well as degrees, associate's degrees, bachelor's degrees, graduate degrees. Very, 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 that's three varies, few go into trades, as you would imagine. Not a lot of blind electricians or plumbers or HVAC technicians. Some every now and then with really some stable low vision, but it's very, very frequent. My buddy Eric in his presentation, I think you guys have a fair number that go into the trades.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, we have quite a few and are actually trying to push that direction, just because the pay is higher, the demand's higher as well.
Right, yeah, excellent. And again, for DVR, 39.5%, just under the mark. And the overall performance assessment number, 98.1%. Good shape there. Slide 24, please. Measurable skill gain. Again, it's basically the same folks that we were talking about in this measure, except now what we're talking about here is the mileposts along the path to the credential. Okay, so we're looking at, so for a secondary student, a high school student, we're talking about moving from sophomore to junior, moving from junior to senior. If we're talking about a college student, we're talking about at least 12 credit hours, I should say, during the program year. If we're talking about somebody in an apprenticeship program, again, are they meeting certain mileposts, either certain number of OJT hours or passing a certain exam or X number of years that they've completed in the program. And so then slide 25, please. Here are the numbers. Negotiated level 35.0%, adjustment factor not applicable. So the reason why is that the federal government decided that based on the numbers that they were getting, the data that they were getting, they weren't comfortable with their statistical adjustment model. And so it's basically like an NFL exhibition game, right? They're keeping score, but it doesn't count in the standings. All right. So here are the scores. The actual level for New Mexico was 53.3%, way above the mark. Commission for the blind, 59.4%, way above the mark. DVR, 52.9%, way above the mark. And I know with us, I think actually these numbers should actually be higher for us. But what we find is two issues. Number one is getting the documentation from from the students, okay, or from the participant, we might consider that to be a very high priority item for us, but getting the documentation to us might be a very low priority for the participant. And so we need to get that documentation and then need to get it in a timely way so that we can get it into our federal report each quarter in order to get credit, for that. So Eric, do you guys find the same thing with your consumer?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's definitely challenging, and most students, at least at the high school level, even college students, prefer text messaging. So not all staff have access to a work cell phone.
Right.
So
Right.
it can be challenging for sure.
Right. Yeah. So we're all working kind of through trying to develop more efficient, more effective processes for getting the documentation so that we can get it into the case management system, so we can get it into the reports that we send each quarter to the feds. All right. 2 more slides. Slide 26, please. Effectiveness in serving employers, retention with the same employer. This is really, really new. Percentage of participants with wage records who exit from WIOA core programs and are employed with the same employer in the second or fourth quarters after exit. This is, again, going to be reported by one of the WIOA partners, just was adopted in March of this year. So this is new. And it's baseline for program year 2024, which is the year that we're in right now. Basically, the feds are gathering their data. We're not even keeping score on this one. So, and we just noticed, I just talked to our IT coordinator yesterday to ask if we had anything in our system yet. And she was saying, yes, that the newer release did have some information here. So we'll be getting more familiar with that, with this particular measure here pretty quickly. And then slide 27, please, our last slide. And this is a summary of the performance assessment numbers that I provided so far. Employment Q2 after exit, 97%. Employment Q4 after exit, 101.86%. Median earnings Q2 after exit, 101.86%. I'm sorry, 1.4.86%. And credential attainment rate, 98.1%. So I think we're in good shape. I think we're doing really well, and happy that, again, once they get measurable skill gain going, I think we'll do that one as well. Chairman Roscoe, I'd be happy to take questions if anybody has any.
Thank you, Jim. And thank you, Greg and Eric, for your presentations. Really good numbers, by the way. I'm very impressed.
Thanks.
Any questions? Yes, Greg.
Sure. Two questions. One, thank you, Jim. On your Swiss data, is that a bureaucratic process, or have you struggled to negotiate, I'll call them the interagency agreements? And I think back in their workforce days, for us to get data sharing and salary and all was quite the challenge. So is this just a bureaucratic process for you now?
The agreement is very detailed. Let me tell you, there is a really long agreement, but I mean, we're all on board with it. It's just a matter of getting this final meeting together and to make it happen. So I'm hoping, again, we're able to put it to bed next week.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because I know we did that. We had a lot of very detailed agreements, and we had that struggle through. And it was quite a challenge. And then my other question, it may be more pointed towards Greg or whatever, that is, with the great advancement of technology, AI, and facilities that want to use creative media and all these activities, does the commission engage at all, or is there a mechanism to try and partner with the, I'll call them universities, to start pressing for new technology to be supportive to your clients?
Funny, Brent, you should mention that. Just last week, I submitted a support letter for an artificial intelligence project that Missouri State University is doing, the Kumar Institute on Artificial Intelligence and Autonomous Systems. So we had a meeting with the Commissioner of the Rehabilitation Services Administration. I participated in AI think tank at a conference a couple of weeks ago. On my phone here, I have a couple of artificial intelligence programs. I could take a picture of the room and it would describe what folks are wearing, what they're doing, who's playing on their cell phone, all those kinds of things. So artificial intelligence for people with disabilities is going to really, really transform the way we do things. It's going to transform society, people with mobility impairments. For us, it's a navigation app, all of those things. So yeah, we're very, very involved.
Okay, well, it's so important. I know the facilities, I certainly can't speak for UNM as much, but New Mexico State is such a phenomenal program in IT and AI and all that, that we should be a groundbreaking area for some of this technology. Thank you.
Exactly. One of the issues is trust. To what extent can you trust the information you're giving? If your AI device says there's a cliff 2 feet to your left, you know, do you trust that? So they can be really life-saving and matter of you know, employment. It's really great to think about what technology is going to do.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Great question. Anybody else? I can't see if we have any questions online. Not seeing any. I do have a question regarding the performance measures. With such high results, do you expect the Fed are going to come back next year wanting to push those? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
They've been pushing them up every year so far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a great problem to have.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Very good.
Mr. Chairman, Secretary, I do want to add one additional point to what Jim was saying earlier with respect to people who are on benefits. One of the real advantages, one of the real reasons why we have a vocational rehabilitation program that gets broad bipartisan support is we do help our consumers to go off of benefits. And we do have in place counseling methods, DDR and the commission, to help them to maintain their Medicaid and Medicare. There are different work incentives so that they can keep those benefits and work. There's the 1619B program. If you lose SSI, you can keep Medicaid. In Mexico, we have the working disabled individual category of Medicaid. The commission even helped the state to develop the Medigap program. There's a terrible situation where if you go on to disability or going on to SSDI, there's a 24-month waiting period before Medicare starts. But in New Mexico, we have the Medigap program that will provide aid during that 24-month waiting period. So we really do make that a priority.
And I'm sorry if I misled people to think that all of our consumers are trying to hang on to their Social Security benefits. Most of them, as Greg was kind of talking about, most of them are happy to utilize them during the time that they're receiving vocational rehabilitation services, but they know that they can't be restricted by those earnings limitations if they want to really make really good money and really be able to have what I always call the American dream, mortgage debt, and be able to have discretionary income, to do fun things in their lives. So most of them are very happy to, be done with Social Security benefits when they get the training and and the education that they really need for their career goal.
Any final comments or questions? All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to committee updates. We'll start off with our policy committee. Carla.
And I'll go first. Okay, so since our last state workforce board meeting in August, we did meet on several occasions, I think it was like 5, to specifically address the youth program eligibility policy that we voted on today. To reiterate Rebecca's shout out, kudos to Rosina and Veronica for getting us the information available so we could, kind of help give clear guidance to make these changes. And I mean, as you know, this document had not been really addressed or updated since 2018. So it was a heavy lift and there were, numerous meetings, involved. We heard from a couple of the local workforce board, representatives last time we met in August about the challenge of youth engagement. That, I mean, as far as the three, buckets, right, of engagement, how challenging youth was. So I think we all went in with the vision to try and clarify, give, good guidance and hopefully give them a little bit better, a little bit better tool so they can properly engage, students. Again, a living document, and we'll be able to, to address that moving forward. But that's what we did for the committee's task up until between state meetings. Another thing so now that we have addressed the majority of we've actually, I shouldn't say a majority, we've addressed all of the policies that we really needed to, in order to bring us, to, I don't think compliance, but to, current, thank you, to current. We also, so the staff, the team, Rosina and Veronica both have we now have a spreadsheet and a database of all of the policies that we will now be able to just kind of address, and a timeline of to when they need to get looked at, when they need to get revised, and we will be able to kind of have a better, more routine action plan about, revising these policies. So that's what we have done in the interim.
Excellent. I think that's a great point to move forward, is having that routine and just reviewing the policies on. I'm surprised.
But that was a heavy lift. There's a lot of policies. They bring the spreadsheet on the screen and I'm like, you just keep, we're gonna keep scrolling? We're gonna keep scrolling. Okay, that's fine. You got it though.
Well, it's amazing to hear that we are current now. I thought we still had more ways to go, but thank you for all the hard work that you guys put into that.
These guys.
Yes.
Spent a lot of time.
That was a lot of time for them.
Any questions for Carla from the board? All right.
I do want to add something. Carla is correct, when she said compliant, because a few of these policies were part of findings that we had through a federal monitoring. So we have now addressed all of those policies, with this being one of the last. So everything else is as needed, or if a new TIGO comes out that requires us to update a policy as we speak to each of the 4 boards and listen to their needs. That's where we take action on the different policies. So we can outline what we want to do, but it is always, shifting and moving as a priority.
Thanks, Carla. All right, let's move on to our business engagement committee. Mathis.
Hi. Can you hear me now?
There you are.
All right, good. So Karen and I put together an effort to have a meeting yesterday so that we could give you an update. For reasons that I can't go into, I had a severe communication challenge and wasn't able to alert nor get on the call. So we have rescheduled that for the beginning of January, have a whole host of meetings on calendars for January. Part of the update that I was going to go through yesterday is the companies that we're focusing on as far as, goal 1 and goal 2. I've added Kevin Yearout to the team, primarily because of the construction industry and his involvement with that. I know Kevin, and I think he'd be a great addition to the committee. As well, some of you may have seen this already, but Blue Halo has been acquired by another company. It's headquartered out here in Virginia, AeroVironment. One private equity selling to the other. It looks like the ownership is going to be, again, majority of the previous owner of Blue Halo. Therefore, I don't think we'll see many policy changes in terms of their strategy for the development in the area. And as most of you know, we talk about Blue Halo a lot, 'cause I think it's a great poster child for us in terms of the advanced ability to start programming, training for what they need across both skills, and higher ed. So I'll have to leave it there. All of you who did dial in yesterday, I apologize. I look forward to talking to all of you in January.
It's no problem. We struggled as much as we could without you, Mathis, but we did have some good discussion. But
I'm sure the call went much quicker without me.
Any questions for Mathis? I don't see any. Well, thank you very much, Mathis. All right, moving on to the Performance Committee. Carlos.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My report will be brief, but I'm happy to report that we did convene our first committee meeting on October 28th. So that's progress. And thanks to Carla Melendez for pulling us together. And I think that first meeting was really just trying to clarify our purpose around, what questions we have, what are we really trying to learn from the data beyond what we already know, right? That we have a lot of compliance data, we have a lot of performance data. So I think we want to make sure that whatever we do is informing policy or strategy, or how will our data be used and what do we want to influence? So we talked a little bit about purpose. We also talked a little bit about bounding, right? It is, I think, the state plan is a pretty big mental model. And so what's that smaller piece that we could take on that's doable? So purpose and bounding. And then the third was really searching for context, right? What other data do we need? What other parts of the system do we need to look at to answer whatever questions we come up with? And so very much taking a systems approach and wanting to go beyond kind of the data sets that we're all used to seeing, those performance measures, and see what other contexts might add meaning. So early days still, but we're at least trying to build some momentum, and I'll be reaching out to Carla to get that next meeting on the books.
Thank you, Carlos. Any questions for Carlos? All right, well, thank you. And let's go on to the Workforce and Education Committee. Kelly.
Good morning, all. Sorry I had to turn my camera off. I've got a bit of a lag due to some bandwidth capacities, but first and foremost, I always want to thank Deputy Secretary Groginski for his administrative support with the committee. In August, I reported out that we really made some great progress. We drafted our goals and we defined our vision and mission, which really was identifying the common needs that can help inform what workforce in the future should look like, based on the state workforce development plan. Now, I mean, it took about 5 dedicated meetings, but I'm happy to report that we have finalized our six goals and have moved into discussions and meetings on what are the measurable outcomes of those goals in 2025 and beyond. And so identifying really synergy with other subgroups. We've talked about the Mathis's group, the Business Engagement Committee, talked a little bit with Carlos from the Performance Committee side, where is there cross-pollination? And we even have, I think, some exciting things to maybe work towards in 2025, things like potentially a workforce development proclamation, some presentations from various workforce development agencies. I was so excited to hear about today's, which was a fabulous presentation. And our chairman said it best: workforce development is economic development. And so building some synergy there, really just trying to help anything we can do to help inform our efforts from a multi-sectoral perspective, and where there's synergy amongst various sectors, and again, everything aligning with the state workforce development plan. So we've made great progress and look forward to more progress. So that's it.
Very good to hear, Kelly. Are there any questions for Kelly? Not seeing any. All right, well, thank you, Kelly. All right, let's move on to DWS updates. Secretary.
Well, I'll be as quick as I can. We have a lot of news, but I want to stay between you and lunch. So, first I wanted to mention, that the governor issued an executive order 2024-152, that relates to the climate ready and infrastructure workforce development. And the great thing that does, it requires all the other agencies that are getting funding for workforce development to coordinate with us to make sure we're not duplicating efforts, to bring people through the WIOA front door when it's appropriate. And we'll be putting out an annual report. The first one will come out in March 1st. So that was great news for us and a lot of great support that also builds on our grant, our Powering Climate Infrastructure Careers Grant, which is to do sector planning in those areas, and then our backup program, which is building, energizing, and connecting through apprenticeship. I think I talked about that last time. It's about a $9 million grant from the U.S. Department of Labor. So lots of great energy around infrastructure and climate change. We also hired our he's our senior policy fellow, but his goal was to start up our Office of New Americans. His name is Leo Castaneda. He comes to us with a great background in immigration, but also economics and journalism. And basically, we'll be looking at all the things at the intersection of immigration and work. And so just getting ready for the unexpected in the months to come, but also lots of things that we sort of hear from the business community about. We know there's great workers in our community. We know they're eligible for work authorization, where they have their work authorization, but how do we find them? And those are all the things that Leo will be looking at for us. We had our LSC budget presentation, and they were very pleased with a lot of the updates. Just a couple that I wanted to highlight. We talked a lot about the federal funding changes, and I don't know how much this board has sort of monitored through the years, but we looked at just fiscal years 23 through 25. And our federal funding at DWS has decreased by $6.1 million. If you look at the fact that we had raises that were required to be given every year, and we never got federal funding for those. So there's basically an effective budget decrease of $6 million. And then the local boards, just a straight decrease in federal funding of $3.5 million over those three fiscal years. So just to everybody in the workforce system, we've all been doing more with less. And I just wanted to really acknowledge that and also make sure the legislature knew that. And I think they were surprised to hear those numbers. Also, we're really glad to report on some of our performance measures, some of the great progress we've made in the TANF program, some of the new co-locations of our American Job Centers in Socorro and TRC. And so just a lot of good news that we were able to share from throughout the workforce system. And then I just wanted to touch on our legislative agenda. And before I do that, I do want to invite especially all of our other partners here who have something that they're working on in the legislature. Please share it with us. We'd love to stand in support of what you're doing in committee, or, especially if you're looking for budget expansion. That's something that we want to kind of be together as we move into the legislative season. Our asks are all one time. We have some asks that are specific to the UI program, but we're looking to do a labor force participation study. We've talked about this at length here, everywhere. There's just the percentage of New Mexicans who are working or looking for work is pretty substantially lower than the rest of the country. And so, but we don't know why. So this money would give us the opportunity to really conduct an in-depth survey and maybe debunk some myths, maybe learn something we don't know, and then be able to target programs accordingly. We're also asking for $750,000 for the people and processes piece of the Aligned Case Management Project. And, thanks to all the partners in the room who are working on that. But the idea behind that is that we can make referrals to both other workforce agencies and also to external partners, and then know what happened. And then if there's nothing happened, be able to follow up and really be able to be much better connected. And so that's a $750,000 ask for people and processes. Plus, we also ask for IT money to build out that system. We have an ask for $500,000 for an intensive case management program for out-of-school youth. And we're asking them to double the amount of money we have for pre-apprenticeship by adding another $600,000, and then looking to put aside some money for a local journalism fellowship program that we've been doing for a few years. That's really a couple legislators pet project, but it goes through our department. We're also going to have three bills up there this year. And one, that might be of special, importance here for this group is, we took a look at the unemployment insurance provisions relating to business sale and merger. If you've ever been through it, it's kind of a nightmare. I used to do it, my previous career as a lawyer. We would just always say in the deal, like, and then someday in the future, for solutions, we'll acknowledge that we changed hands in this business and we'll just leave that for post-closing because we could never get it done. That we are hoping to fix in this session. We're also hoping to make the provisions in the law that have to do with unemployment insurance when there's a disaster, make them a little more consistent throughout different programs. And then another one, the last one that we're really excited about is called the International Healthcare Workforce Development Act. And the idea of that one is to make contact with the international healthcare professionals who are basically underemployed. Like I was a nurse before I moved to America, but here I'm not licensed to be a nurse, so maybe I'm an orderly, or maybe I'm a waitress, or maybe I'm doing something that is not in the healthcare profession. So we want to give a place for those folks to come to understand what licensure is, to give them financial support and training. And then there's a special focused program for primary care physicians, where we're hoping to have basically an accelerated 6-month to 1-year process that gets them ready to take the board, and then also fund some additional residencies in rural and underserved communities so that hospitals can take on these folks and they'll promise to stay in those communities. So all of that is contingent on making it through a very packed 60-day session, but if so, I think we'll come out having done a lot to help our businesses. So I'll stop there.
Any questions for the secretary? Are there opportunities for us to support you and these initiatives in the legislature?
Absolutely. We're working on sort of I'm hoping a one-pager that kind of goes through all of these priorities. We're just waiting for the executive budget to be released because, they're always fine-tuning up till the end. And we don't want to be asking people to support something that's not fair at the end. But as soon as that comes out, look for us to put out sort of a one-pager, and we'd love to get your support for whatever channels that you're doing. I think last year, the Workforce Training and Apprenticeship Fund, Carla, Kelly, many of our partners, that was really you all, the community, getting that money that now is benefiting apprenticeship programs across the state. So we would love to get that support.
I think you'd have a lot of local voices here for you. Also, did we meet with the Chihuahua secretary after our election? I can't remember if we. Okay. But we met with a delegation.
Sealer, I think, was, yeah. Marcellus Sealer, Secretary of Sealer.
Thank you. Both Secretary Nair and the Chihuahuan Secretary, the Chihuahuan Secretary, for more or less workforce development down there, met to kind of talk about cross-border issues. We've had staff from both sides kind of talking and see if there are ways for us to work together. I attended and I thought it was a great meeting. I left it very excited that we could do some stuff together. I think it would be very beneficial. Historically, New Mexico and Chihuahua have done stuff together, but that kind of fell to the wayside. So this is a way to kind of rebuild that. And I think you said workforce development, everybody loves that, so there's got to be some connection that we can use.
And we also talked about doing a border labor secretaries conference, and apparently they used to do that when there used to be a border governors conference, and then our side of the border governors stopped getting along, and so they stopped that. We thought the labor secretaries still get along, we can still have that conference. So I actually talked to California and Arizona, they're both in. And they said they're almost as excited to talk to us as they are. They all work with their direct border, just like we were with Chihuahua, but none of them kind of cross the vertical boundaries of their own state. And so I think Ed will be on board from Texas, and we'll try to get that going.
That's awesome. That's great. So thank you for putting that together, and then we'll continue to work on that. I'm very excited.
Joshua, there used to be Fire Development Council in Mexico for Maquila. I don't know if it still exists, but they were very active back in the day with those kinds of meetings.
Interesting. I not heard of that.
Jerry would know about it,
Yeah.
but they were very active many years ago when we were doing this.
Okay. Yeah, I know our office specifically is trying to be more cross-border. So stuff like this, we're very interested in. Yeah, I'll ask Sherry about that. All right, moving on to chair and board comments. Any comments from the board for this quarter? All right, I don't see any. And basically my comments were just gonna be the cross-border stuff. Very excited for that. All right, then let's move on to public comment. Do we have anybody sign up for public comment? Does anybody want to stand up and give public comment?
I do.
Yes.
Paulo Espinosa from, yes. I just, on the 3rd of December of this past Monday, I attended a SBA Military Community Entrepreneurship Summit in Las Cruces held at the New Mexico Farm and Ranch Heritage Museum. And it was very exciting, I was one of the speakers out there with many other speakers out there. And our objectives was just to increase awareness for federal government's programs and to support entrepreneurship among veterans, including the disabled veterans and women veterans, the Native American veterans, also in transitioning with service members, military spouses, and reserves of the National Guard and members to the rural areas throughout the Southwest, especially in New Mexico. The strategies to collaborate with local resources in targeting areas for furnish education contents, and invite veterans, Reserve and National Guard components, members, and military spouses, teach them and helping them to assist them in starting small businesses throughout the Southwest and especially here in New Mexico. We had about over 140 registered, and it was a very well put together summit by the SBA, well given and throughout the day, all day long this past Monday. And that was just wanted to give that out to the board and everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Very good information to have. Any other public comment? All right. Well, then that brings us to the end of our agenda. If there are no objections, then this meeting is adjourned. Do we have dates yet for next year? I think we're gonna work on those.
Yeah.
And then, and just as a quick note, I'm calling it a planning session, a strategic planning session. It just wasn't gonna work out, yesterday. We weren't able to get enough people here, which makes sense. So we're gonna look at some dates, next year. I'm gonna say probably in Albuquerque, just for make it easier for more people to attend. So just be on the lookout for that. But yeah, we'll come up with dates for the other weeks as well. All right, well, thank you, everybody. This meeting is adjourned. Appreciate you all coming down to visit us. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Everybody, bye.
Everybody have a good day.
Yeah, man. It was definitely good work.